This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Yeah. Okay, back at it.
Not moose.
Let's talk about hunting. Let's talk about hunting and halacha. Is it an issue of Tzar B'alei Chaim? We're going to talk about Tzar B'alei Chaim. There's a concept that, according to Jewish law, you can't cause distress to an animal. The Gemara tells us Tzar B'alei Chaim is the Eraisa. By the way, an amazing Ramban. The Ramban says, what's the source that you can cause distress to an animal? The Ramban says the source is the mitzvah of shchita. Why is shchita a mitzvah? Why do you make a bracha on shchita? What mitzvah are you mekayim by slaughtering an animal? The answer is, you're mekayim the mitzvah of relieving the animal of any distress that you would cause it by taking its life in any other way. Shchita is a painless way for the animal to die. By the way, there's an amazing thing that in all kosher animals, by severing the two simanim, you immediately cut off the oxygen flow to the head, so the animal experiences no pain in the shchita process. In non-kosher animals, the animal still has oxygen going to the brain from other sources, so shechting a non-kosher animal will actually cause the animal a lot of distress. That's why we only eat kosher animals. The Ramban says the source of Tzar B'alei Chaim D'Oraisa is the mitzvah of shchita. So is hunting a violation of causing distress to an animal? Absolutely not. The Rabbi Yehuda says in a famous tshuva that Tzar B'alei Chaim is only a problem if you keep the animal alive. But if you take the animal's life, you're not causing the animal distress. You know, people always make a mistake. Don't kill it, it's Tzar B'alei Chaim. So that is a very compelling way to demonstrate amaratzos, meaning Jewish illiteracy. There is no issue of Tzar B'alei Chaim in taking life of the animal. The issue is what Rav Moshe says, that it's considered cruelty. So it's an issue of a person's own character as opposed to Tzar B'alei Chaim D'Oraisa. Now, the Ramah tells us in Even Azar, in Siman Hay, anything that is needed for medicinal reasons, for refuah, or any other human need, there is no Tzar B'alei Chaim. So if somebody needed a feather to write a Sefer Torah or to write anything, one could pluck a feather from a bird, from a goose. There's no issue with Tzar B'alei Chaim. However, the Ramah says we don't pluck the feather just straight off because that would be achzarias. So the question is, what is the makar? What's the source that for human need there's no issue of Tzar B'alei Chaim? Comes the Das Kedoshim. You know what the Das Kedoshim is? Das Kedoshim is the Buchach. And he says the raya that for human need there's no issue of Tzar B'alei Chaim is plowing. So he says, how could you plow with an ox? But it's there's a lot of work. It's painful. It's in the blistering heat, and the Torah allows you to plow it. It speaks about plowing. There are many different psukim that discuss plowing. That shows Tzar B'alei Chaim is permitted for the sake of human need. Comes the Chelkas Yaakov, the Kinsker going, and he says it's not a raya. He says animals love to pull, like we saw yesterday at the kennel. Animals enjoy pulling. They're trained to pull. So what's the Das Kedoshim's raya that Tzar B'alei Chaim is permitted for human need for the fact that you're allowed to plow? Animals are trained. They're groomed. They enjoy pulling. So there's interesting. The Sri Dayesh has a tshuva that he defends the raya of the Das Kedoshim. He says, yeah, animals like to plow. But the Torah doesn't put any limit on up to what point you can plow with an animal. What if you've already plowed with the animal for 9 hours and the animal's having a very hard time and he's in great distress? Is there any prohibition or limitation that you have to give the animal an hour off? No. You could plow with an animal without any limit. That demonstrates that for any human need, that supersedes Tzar B'alei Chaim. So that's an important yesod when it comes to Tzar B'alei Chaim. On the other hand, Rav Moshe, in Even Azar Chelik Daled, has a certain limitation of what is considered human need. So there's a type of calf that is fattened in order to produce a certain white quality in the meat. What is it called? I think it's called white veal. What do you say it's called? So where they box in the animal and they stuff the animal with all kinds of foods that the animal has no interest in and the animal doesn't enjoy, just not to make the animal healthier, merely to make the animal appear plumper and the meat should be whiter. And Rav Moshe says it is asur, even though the person stands to gain from it, because for the sole intention is a arbitrary benefit, where people are convinced that this meat is more delicious. It's not more delicious. Says Rav Moshe, most of the animals that are fat in this way are treifos, and even if the animal is not a treifa in the lung, it's a treifa in the intestine, and a very small percentage of them are healthy. So for this type of human need, which is an arbitrary human need, it's merely tricking people into a delicacy that is not really based in reality. Rav Moshe says this would not constitute human need that would supersede Tzar B'alei Chaim. So, which means in principle there's a concept of not causing distress to an animal. The Noda B'Yehuda says this does not apply when you take the animal's life, although there is an issue of the achzarios that it may engender in the one who commits it. But nevertheless, there is a certain guideline that the human need has to be a legitimate, based, reasonable human need. But under those circumstances, animals were created for the service of man. And actually, al pi Kabbalah, we know we have a concept that animals would like us to eat them. In fact, many people don't understand animal language. But actually, when a cow says moo, what the cow is saying is, please put me in your cholent. Please eat me. Because we know al pi Kabbalah there are 4 categories of matter. There's doimen, samech, Chaim, and daber. And the highest elevation is when an animal is consumed, he's elevated to the status of medaber. So yesterday the animal was just sitting there, he couldn't speak, and now that you've consumed him, the animal is elevated to the status of medaber. V'zeh hatam shani choshev sha'gemara imeres amei ha'oretz asurim le'achol basar. Lama b'zman hazeh yesh kol kach anoshim shechoshev she'asur le'achol basar. Zeh mipnei she'asur la'am ha'oretz le'achol basar. Mipnei she'keshehem oichlin es habasar einam malin es habasar. Adarabba, he moiridan es habasar. The cow is on a higher madriga than they were, so taka they should not be eating the meat. But for Shomerei Torah mitzvahs, by eating basar, it brings a great aliyah to the basar.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.